Hello, I'm Bret and you're watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. Our guest today is Michael Brown. Michael is an author and a public speaker. He also has experience as a journalist, columnist, and magazine editor. He was born in South Africa and he currently lives there. In 1987, he developed an acutely painful neurological condition known as Horton's syndrome. After years of conventional and alternative therapies, Michael embarked on a personal quest to heal his condition using his own experience as a barometer and a guide. His healing discoveries and his spiritual awakening led him to write the book, The Presence Process, a healing journey into present moment awareness. Michael Brown, welcome back to The Defining Moment. It's a pleasure to welcome you back in our studio today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming. Our topic today is restoring emotional balance. And I'd like to begin by asking you to share a defining moment with our viewers related to your own healing journey.
I found that when I got back to South Africa after being away for a long time, I had this immense rage towards my mother. When I was in her presence, I felt really full of anger, and I remember my sister going, "I don't understand why. She's a wonderful person." And there was this immense rage. This rage was coming from the first 7-year cycle, the childhood cycle, the child's experience of something that had happened. So initially one wants to go and talk about this, or if we're in an unaware state or an unconscious state, we like to physically do something about it. But as we move along the pathway of awareness, then we'll want to mentally talk about it. But the causal point is going to be in the emotional body. Of course, I had learned all this through my experiences. But again, encountering the presence of my mother was an opportunity to find out if this was really true. And so what I did was I worked on the rage that came up inside of me. And I became aware that this rage had always been there. So in the earlier years of my life, if I'd gone and visited my mother, I'd gone to sleep on the couch. In other words, because I was not even in contact with my rage, the way I dealt with that experience was to just go unconscious. I'd sleep on the couch, get up and leave. Instead of changing my mother, instead of trying to have her be a different person, I worked on the rage, which is allowing it to be there, feeling it. That's how the emotional body works. It comes back into balance through feeling. I was able to integrate that rage, and now today have an experience with my mother that I can only describe as her being such a close friend. In fact, I say that in my understanding is that once you have integrated the stuff with your mother or with your father or with your sister or your brother, they cease to play those roles. They cease to play those roles. And the role of the mother was really to teach me how to nurture myself. So when I learned to authentically nurture myself, my relationship with my mother came back into balance. And I saw that the authentically making peace, that's what my mother taught me. To be at peace in this world is not about trying to change the world. It's about to work with what the world is reflecting for me while I'm here and integrating that rather than to try and physically change things or mentally discuss it go into a place of mental discussion, but actually go into the heart center and change the nature of what's going on in the heart, bringing the emotional state back into balance.
Okay, very clear. Thank you very much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
I want to ask you one follow-up question about it. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you digested or integrated the anger and the rage that you felt? How did you go about interacting with it, digesting it? What happened for you?
There were many stages of it. The first was just to become aware it was there. Angry people become very nice people. And nice people are people that will do anything to avoid conflict. So they're very nice. Okay, I became a very nice person. And it took a while before someone could show me that my niceness was poisonous to myself and everyone around me, because nice people say no when they mean yes and yes when they mean no. Yes. In fact, you can never trust nice people, okay, because they can't be honest, because they will do whatever it takes to move away from conflict.
There's an insincerity in
Absolutely, but it's not intentional. It's just because the conflict, the anger is so great that it's stuffed into complete unconsciousness, and then the behaviors of sedation and control are just a way of avoiding an awareness of this because we don't know what to do with it. So at a point that I started to learn what to do with my anger, the universe sent someone into my experience and said, you're a very angry person and I'm going to show you that. And so I got to see my anger. Once my anger was out, in my own experience it was quite overwhelming. And I went and joined the Shaolin Temple and did Kung Fu for a while to try and find a creative expression for my anger. And even that wasn't very helpful. I did all sorts of things like screaming and raging on my own.
Acting it out.
Acting it out, giving it an expression in my physical body, allowing my body to express it.
Did that help?
It was helpful, but what I was still doing was not embracing the experience. You see, because I still had this idea that what was coming up wasn't supposed to be there, and it was wrong, it was fearful. So the next level of my development in working with my anger was starting to realize the importance of this energy, and that this energy actually wasn't really anger. It was just energy, and I'd conceptually called it anger. And why I called it anger was because when that energy came up as a child and I wasn't allowed to express it, that gave me this feeling called, I then used to call that's just making me angry. But actually it's just energy. When I became aware that enabling, the more fully I could embrace my anger, allow it to be here. So I'm angry now. Not to project it into this world, not to tell myself stories about it, not to go into physical behavior because of it, but just allow it to sit here. It would really, it burns up and then it integrates. And once it's integrated, it delivered me to a different state of awareness, a different state of experience, because that anger, by feeling it, was awakening my emotional body awareness. It was allowing me to feel aspects of my emotional body that I'd shut down, that had become uncomfortable, and therefore I called it anger. But actually it's just energy. And when I realized that feeling my emotional body enabled me to develop a vocabulary that I could then start having a vibrational awareness, I ceased to see my anger or moments that I called anger as being something wrong and I need to change it into something else. My relationship with it now is that if I feel this feeling that I used to call anger, what it does is it says, bring your attention to this moment, sit with it, allow it to be there. A very simple illustration. If a child comes into the room and is angry, me changing that child's behavior is going to cause a trauma to the child. In other words, if I say, don't be angry, here's a sweet, I'm not allowing it to move through the experience and therefore come to completion and integrate it. The most compassionate thing to do, compassion is an interesting word, come, pass on, compassion. The most compassionate thing to do with a child is to say, yes, you're angry. And you have a right to be angry. Whatever happened to you caused you to be angry. So be angry. And I'm going to be with you while you go through the anger. I'm not going to interfere. I'm not going to go into any fear about what you're going through. You go through the anger. And if you treat the child like that, the child will go through the anger, end up in tears, which is what's underneath all anger is grief. Once the tears are gone, it's over. The child goes out and plays.
Yes.
It's the same relationship with my heart center. If I don't try and change the anger, if I just allow it to be there, I acknowledge it as being there, and I embrace it, it eventually does become tears. And once the tears have passed, then there's a balance achieved. I'm no longer holding, there's no longer a part of my awareness holding on to that unintegrated experience, trying to figure out what happened and how to stop it happening again. I've gained more presence out of allowing myself to experience the anger.
In years past, a lot of therapists would say, express your anger if you have anger, like in a relationship, husband and wife, for example. But now today they're saying it's better not to express that.
And
okay.
both. Okay, so, but I'm either in charge of my life or I'm carrying a charge through my life. If I behave driven unconsciously by this charge of anger, it's going to be destructive. I'm going to create more anger in my world. But if I take charge of the anger, in other words, if I become aware of it and allow myself to integrate it, there may still come a point that I act. So, for example, you may make me angry. Okay, you may do stuff that angers me.
Yes.
If I now behave in that moment, it's a reaction. And no balance ever comes from reactive behavior.
Yes.
So the first thing I need to do is respond to my own experience. I'm angry. What does this remind me of? Because all anger is a memory. There's no anger in this moment. If anger appears in this moment, it's a memory of something unintegrated from the past. So you're reflecting that. So don't shoot the messenger. First I want to get the message, and then at some point I may want to act. I may want to come to you and go, you know what you said to me about that thing? That made me really angry. But you know what I learned about that? Da-da-da-da-da. Okay.
It's kind of a spiritual maturity.
Absolutely.
Based on that integration work.
It's an emotional maturity.
An emotional maturity.
Remember, the world does not mature our emotional body. Around about the age of 7, our emotional body is kind of shut down, and it doesn't grow up from that point. Emotional body maturity is what separates the wheat from the chaff, because it's something I have to do for myself. No one in the world is going to help me mature emotionally, because emotional maturity comes from response, not reactive. If I take care of my emotional body for you, that's reactive. So that's why we can see in the world that your mental body gets matured because you go to school and do all the learning. The physical body gets matured if I just eat the basics of food. So there are physically matured, mentally matured individuals who are running the world behaving like 7-year-olds. Why? Because the emotional body hasn't been matured. And if the emotional body isn't matured, there is going to be no spiritual development, because the one leads to the other. But me developing my emotional maturity is something that has to come from myself, not because of someone else. That's why the world doesn't encourage it. It has to come from a response to my experience, not a reaction to the world.
Very interesting. You've said that reactive behavior, without exception, births imbalance.
Yes.
You're not exaggerating when you say that?
Well, if I get angry, and then I project that anger onto you, it's not going to bring our experience together into peace. Not now, it's not going to do that. It's not going to do that. So it will bring further imbalance, because reactive behavior presumes that I am not responsible for my experience. A reactive behavior is the behavior of a victim and a victor. So it's saying, I'm not responsible for my experience. A reactive behavior, the way we react is always to blame. That word blame, to be lame. The moment I blame you for my experience, I've disempowered myself. I've completely disempowered myself. How can I achieve balance through disempowerment? How can I achieve balance through being a victim? How can I even achieve balance through being a victor? For example, revolutionary behavior is a reactive behavior. A revolutionary is reacting to being oppressed. Now, what a revolutionary does is use the same means to gain liberation as is being used to oppress them. And if you use the same means, you become the same as your oppressor. And a revolutionary always creates victims, always becomes a dictator, and that's why it's called revolution. It revolves, the experience just revolves. There's no change to the experience.
No transformation.
No balance achieved. It always keeps the experience in imbalance. So reactive behavior, I can't see how reactive behavior can bring balance. Maybe in the long term I can react, okay, and I can then see through my experience that my reaction is not fruitful, and from that experience I can learn to become responsive.
Yes.
And in that way, yes, maybe reactive behavior can breed in the experience down the line.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
What more is involved in restoring emotional balance?
Restoring emotional balance is simply enabling myself to move along the pathway of awareness, to go from to first enter my physical body fully. I want to arrive in the physical body. And most of us don't live in the physical body.
Where do we live?
We live in the mental body. So, for example, there are many of us that drive to work and get to work and cannot recall how we got there, because we weren't in the body. We were in the mind, or in the mental. The mind for me is the physical, mental, and emotional. But we were in the mental. And so while I was driving to work, I was still at home having a conversation with my kids. You've got to see my point of view, and I'm right. Or I was at work having the conversation with my boss that I'm still haven't had yet, but I'm already having it now. I'm not here in this moment. So for many of us, we don't live in the body. We live in the thought, in the mental body. The first step is to enter the body. to come into the body. The next step is to gain some level of mental clarity. And the mental clarity is, I'm the causal point of the quality of my experience. And another aspect of mental clarity is understanding that the causal point of my experience is in my feelings, not in my thoughts and my physical circumstances. And I'll give you an example of this. There are three ways that people attempt to make peace in this world. The one way is to adjust the physical circumstances of the world. Okay, to enforce physical circumstances upon other people.
Mm-hmm.
This is called enforcing peace.
Yes.
Okay, so this has never led to peace. There is no historic record of this ever leading to peace,
mm-hmm.
because peace is not a physical circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
It's expressed physically.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's another way that we can make peace. We can say, well, let's get together and have a peace conference. Let's talk about peace. I will draw up my manifesto about peace. You draw up your manifesto. We'll bring the reporters and we'll sign them in public, because now we have an agreement in our manifesto and we're going to have peace this way. Peace has never been accomplished through the mental, because the mental is not the causal point of peace. It can reflect peace. Peace, I only know I'm at peace when I feel at peace.
Mm.
Peace is a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's the causal point. So when I feel at peace, my thoughts will reflect that because of the pathway of awareness. My thoughts become more peaceful, and when my thoughts become more peaceful, my relationship with my physical environment is one of more peacefulness. I don't have to rearrange the environment. So if I want to attain authentic peace, my duty is to move my awareness to feel the authentic condition of my emotional body. The authentic condition of my emotional body. To feel what fear, anger, and grief is going on there, because that is going on unconsciously, leading into my thoughts, creating the physical experience that I'm having.
Now, are you saying that people are always experiencing a certain degree of fear, grief, and anger all the time?
Yes, until we experience peace.
Mm-hmm. So if there's no peace present...
Look, peace is given, right? The whole world is at peace, actually. If you go to the Middle East now, there's just peace. And if you want to see that, remove all the human beings. You'll see that it's just peace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Peace is given. We don't have to make peace. What we have to do is take a look at what it is that's obscuring the peace that is already there. Peace is given. Okay. So it's the same thing in my personal journey. If I want to be at peace authentically, I'm not just talking about it, then I have to go and take a look at what's causing the chaos in my life. I'll become aware of chaos. And that's the fear, anger, and grief, or those emotional dysfunctions that are keeping my emotional body out of balance. Now, the emotional body is very simple. It's the child part of us. Unless I become a child again, I cannot enter the kingdom of heaven.
Someone said that.
Okay, somebody said that, right? and for me, my integration of that is, unless I enter the emotional body, the child part of myself, the 7-year-old and younger, and bring that into harmony, bring that into balance, I cannot enter heaven. Heaven is just even, in balance, okay? And the way the emotional body works is very simple. If I'm standing up and I close my eyes and I fall over, the reason I'm falling over is because I cannot feel how out of balance I am, right? Thinking about it's not going to help. If I think I'm 6 degrees out of balance, 12 degrees out of balance, come back, that to me is therapy. Okay, it's just mental therapy.
Okay.
But actually, if I reinstall my ability to feel, simply by feeling how out of balance I am, I can restore my balance. I don't have to think about how out of balance. Just by feeling. It's the same thing with the emotional body. If I allow myself to feel my fear, for example, and my anger and my grief, to the point that I stop running away from it into behaviors of sedation and control, into all sorts of inauthentic behaviors. This is what addiction and affliction is. These are behaviors that have come out of running away from the condition of my emotional body. If I just allow it to be there, especially if I come to the realization that these experiences are beneficial in my journey in regaining emotional body awareness, then the balance automatically comes. The imbalance comes out of running away from the experience and developing inauthentic behaviors to mask the experience. The moment I'm no longer afraid of what's going on in my emotional body, I settle in there. I become at peace in my own heart. And then that's reflected into my thoughts, and then that's reflected into my physical circumstances. So the return to authenticity comes from first seeing what's authentically going on in there, having an authentic experience.
Allowing yourself to fully experience it.
Exactly.
If grief's there, fully experience it.
Fully experience it.
If fear's there, fully experience it and embrace it.
Fully embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually not fear, anger, and grief. These are concepts we've given to energy that is blocked, that all it wants to do is to run. When you block energy like that, if you resist energy, if you create resistance, it creates heat. It creates a friction which creates a heat. It's hot as hell. The heat, the resistance, the heat in the emotional body, we call fear, anger, and grief. That's why we say he's blowing off some steam. He's hot under the collar, hot and bothered. It's all relation to heat. When there is resistance in the emotional body, it creates immense heat. If I'm being inauthentic, I'm resisting what I really am. I'm resisting my authentic behavior. That resistance creates heat. I call that heat fear, anger, and grief. They then become physical circumstances in my world. Going and rearranging the physical circumstances or playing with the concepts isn't going to help me. I must take my awareness back into the emotional body and feel my anger, not project it, but allow myself to feel it and to see its purpose. It's deliberate. It has a deliberate purpose. The moment I can embrace that, I won't run from it, I can be in it, I automatically come back to peace. I wrote this whole book, and I could have just said one word: feel.
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 Now, that brings up another question, because, there's different ways of interacting with one's own feelings. There are people who spend all day kind of wallowing in feelings.
Drama.
Drama. I don't think you're talking about that.
I'm talking about the Dharma, not the drama.
Okay. Explain for everyone what you're talking about.
Drama is when I use my emotional body to get attention from the world that I'm yet not emotionally mature enough to give myself. Fear, anger, and grief is drama. It's just drama. What I want to do is access what I call the Dharma, mm-hmm. the wisdom in it. Mm. Okay, my fear, anger, and grief is only useful to me when I use it as a means to access the Dharma. So, for example, the Dharma is like when I explain to you that I have exactly the amount of fear, anger, and grief in my body required, that when I feel it, enable me to develop the emotional body awareness required to feel the vibrational realm. So that's the Dharma of my anger. The Dharma of my anger is it gives me awareness. It reawakens the emotional body that was shut down when I was 7. When I feel it, all I'm really feeling is all the energies that I've been suppressing. And I call them anger, but they're just energy. Mm-hmm. When I feel that energy, they enable me to feel my life more deeply, to realize that I don't have to run and look for a spiritual experience, that this is the spiritual experience if I allow myself to feel it.
Right now.
Yes, that I've been looking for. This
mm-hmm.
is it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, not something that I have to go and make up. Yeah. It's already here if I just allow myself to feel it. That's the Dharma of my...
So it's be here now is what you're talking about.
Yes, and so that's the Dharma within the drama.
Mm-hmm.
Drama doesn't mean, just because I display fear, anger, and grief, it doesn't mean I have emotional body awareness. Fear, anger, and grief are dysfunctions of the emotional body. They're dysfunctions.
So our spiritual maturity or emotional maturity is how we perceive those, how we integrate those,
yes.
how we allow ourselves to be present
yes.
to them.
Yes. How we take them and grow from them.
Mm-hmm. And that also, as you said, gives us access or an opening to the vibrational realm.
Absolutely. Because
say more about the vibrational realm.
Well, the vibrational realm is an experience, so there's not much to say about it. It's actually a direct experience. So, for example, that experience, the moment you talk about it, is no longer the vibrational realm. It's an absolute direct experience. And so what we have is the direct experience. Then we have metaphor or symbol or parable, which is the language of the emotional body. Then we have mental concepts, in which we can talk about it and explain it and understand it and analyze it. And I love the word analyze. We can analyze it. And then we have the physical expression of it. So, for example, I'll give you a demonstration of those languages into the vibrational body. The first is I can say to you, being very physical, the very physical aspect of it. I say, you and go sit under that tree for 9 days and eat prunes all day and all night if you want to have an experience of God. Now you can go and do that, and you'll find it's a really messy business, right?
Right,
okay.
of course.
Okay, that's physically trying to express what God is, okay, or an approach to God. Or I can say to you, and so you have to go and do that.
Yes.
Okay, you have to leave here and go and do that. Or I can say to you, God is equal to E is equal to MC squared, is God. Which means you still have to go to that, because now you've got to go and learn the science to understand the formula. It requires you to go to it. That's the mental body language. All right. Or I can say to you, you are a drop and God is the ocean. Just allow yourself to fall back into it. Okay. Now, that doesn't require you to do anything. That's the language of the emotional body, because it does something to you emotionally, but it comes and meets you where you are at. It doesn't require you to go anywhere. That's why a lot of people use parables or metaphors to teach, and even we use symbolic symbols to try and convey things that can't be captured mentally. The next level into that is the direct experience, which is the drop falling into the ocean, which you can't express because it's a direct experience. So the vibrational is a direct experience, which first for me gets perceived through feeling it. That's why the feeling body is so important. And then interacting with it as maybe a language of sound and light. Sound and light. Which is not with these eyes or these ears.
Okay.
Okay. It's a different, it's internally. I don't need to be using these eyes or listening with these ears.
It's intuitive?
It's an internal experience.
Internal experience.
Yeah, that is not connected to this physical world. So it's not done with these physical eyes or with these physical ears. So that's my insight about it. But the actual experience itself, I couldn't tell you what that is, because when you have it, or anyone here has it, their experience will be their experience, and they might not be even able to explain it. And if they do, they would use a different metaphor to try and say the same thing. Because
it's unique to that person.
Absolutely.
So each person is unique.
Absolutely. And that's why I was saying, I'm open to the fact that God is infinite, whatever God is, and therefore the journey of God realization is an infinite one. There's no destination. I'm also open to every being in this world having their absolutely own unique experience of it that is completely different to mine. I'm open to that, to being a completely multidimensional experience.
On that note, Michael, you won't believe it, we're already out of time for this interview. Thank you so much for being our guest on Defining Moment. It's been fascinating once again to listen to you. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me here.
I appreciate it. You've been watching Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. You can find us on the internet at www.definingmoment.tv. Thanks for watching and have a great day.